magic in communities and community developments is the grassroots. That's where the magic happens. That's where ideas are formed. That's where coalitions are created. That's where leadership is developed.
The goal around starting Capital Impact was really helping community members to actually have a voice and being included in economic participation across the country.
The community itself came together to lobby Congress to create, a bank for consumer cooperatives, and the creation of what's now Capital Impact.
There were some wise folks that were part of that coalition that said if we aren't intentional about low-income communities, and cooperatives are a viable strategy for low-income communities, but if we aren't intentional about it, it won't happen. And that was absolutely right.
The founding mission was to find ways to help low-income cooperatives organize and grow across the country. The organization, when I came, had one person, so they decided to try me out as their first senior lender, understanding that I'd never lent $1 in my life.
It felt like we were creating something, and we were encouraged to be opportunistic and to be entrepreneurial and to innovate.
We felt like, particularly early on, we had to hire for sensitivity to community development.
When I got there, it was NCB Development Corporation, but before that, it had a different name, and the name was the Office of Technical Assistance. And then it was NCB Capital Impact, and then it was Capital Impact Partners.
In order to reach the mission that Congress intended, we needed to expand our scope in terms of mission and work with every kind of organization that we thought was democratically structured and representative of the communities.
We were making loans to cooperative grocery stores. We were doing affordable housing, but mostly cooperative housing. We were lending to worker-owned co-ops as well.
I was really impressed by Capital Impact's lending across the country in community facilities. They really had expertise in healthcare centers, charter schools, grocery stores.
Capital Impact Partners set their sights on expanding their reach within the community health centers.
They eventually became the largest single lender to nonprofit charter schools in the country.
I think one of the things that Capital Impact brought into the CDFI movement 30 years ago was the ability to focus on specific market sectors, and then to recognize that there are places that it was important to go deep.
If you're going to really have systemic change, you've got to be in there at a lot of different levels, and you have to be partnered with, obviously, with the people who live there.
By listening to community voices, we're able to better understand where our capital is needed, and that's ultimately going to be what benefits the community most.
To commit ourselves to an area that we could actually draw and define on a map requires a different kind of thinking, a different engagement at the local level, and a real understanding of what's going on in the neighborhoods that you're trying to serve.
We're really focused on our 5 geographies because we create relationships by having a focus.
When Capital Impact decided to take on additional place-based geographies, that seemed like something we wanted as a board to support them in doing.
We hope that every region across the United States can benefit from organizations such as Capital Impact Partners that are really centered on addressing community needs.
When we talk about inclusive growth, I think now we need to talk about how do we break down these systems that have perpetuated, racism in our country for far too long.
Given the fact that communities specifically who have been underestimated for so long are actually further behind today, requires community-based organizations to really stand up and stand with communities.
We have never had full access by all participants in the capital markets. And to me, that's why racial equity is important.
Capital Impact Partners is absolutely committed to racial and economic justice. They're really looking to go beyond transactions and think about how their capital can be a catalyst for change.
The Equitable Development Initiative and the broader Entrepreneurs of Color Fund was particularly attractive to our board and our leadership because it really does sort of center around this notion of opportunity.
I'm glad to see Capital Impact Partners take a deep interest in communities of color and come not only with their lending capital, but with their technical support.
If you really want to go deeply into a community, it can't just be facilities lending. How are small business owners going to get capital? How are you going to support just the economic activity within a community?
We really realize that small businesses are not just important for job growth, they're not just important to the local economy, but they're really part of the fabric of our communities. It's important that we have healthy and growing and vibrant small businesses as a part of every neighborhood and every community.
We want to be additive to what the community needs, and we need a broad array of tools so that we can provide both education, healthcare, housing, so the basic needs that every community desires, but also provide opportunities to thrive and prosper and build wealth. And that is how we've come together with CDC Small Business Finance to provide a holistic foray of products and services that really help communities.
As we look at ways to challenge the racial wealth gap, we wanted to adopt the best practices from CDC Small Business Finance and from Capital Impact Partners. We realized that we could really accelerate our strategies and accelerate our ability to have that impact much more quickly together than if we had taken that on alone.
At the core, what we're trying to do is we're trying to provide tools, services, and capital to communities so that they can create their own destiny and create impact within their own communities.
It was really the best of both worlds, a beautiful weaving of talents, being able to put together sort of a full suite of offerings for community players from charter schools, grocery stores, affordable housing to small business lending was an opportunity we just didn't want to pass up.
One of the real promises of Momentus moving forward is that we're going to be able to do comprehensive community economic development. It's an innovation that comes from the cross-pollination and the connection between those services that every community needs.
Any CDFI that is deeply committed to the city and recognizes that the CDFI's job is not to deliver the tool set that makes sense to them, but to create the tool set that exists, that is needed for the context. And I would argue that Capital Impact has been the leader in this space.
Because the mission is so clear and the confidence that these folks have around how to invest and how to use the capital markets effectively and to tap in those markets, whether it's large foundations or commercial institutions, Capital Impact knows what they're doing.
I actually love working with Capital Impact. Medici Road is known for pushing buttons, and Capital Impact didn't back down. So we were literally asking them to think outside the box around what could financing look like, and they said okay.
They've got the financial savvy and just the deep connection with community that it takes to make it all work.
Capital Impact Partners, I think, is meeting its moment and is in a position to actually meet the moment in a way that's going to have a profound impact on communities across this country.
Capital Impact continues to show what is possible for an organization like it, and the possibilities are pretty endless right now. We need 50 more Capital Impacts, to be honest, but we'll do with this one for now, though.
Capital Impact, y'all show up when we need you and bring your networks and your wisdom and funding to the table to make things happen.